What's going on, everybody? C4 here. Welcome back to today's video as we continue our kind of slightly early 2020 draft prep by looking at the defensive line. In today's video, even though I'm almost comfortable enough to do top 10s for each, I'm just going to give you my refined top 5 interior defensive linemen and edge rushers all in one video. There are some really good talents out here, and I think some guys that are going to be very exciting to really match up what we've seen for a lot of the rookies. Like right now, Nick Bosa might be, like, he's definitely in the defensive player of the year conversation. Not just defensive rookie, defensive player of the year. And we got a guy that I think is actually going to be even better and should be a lock to go as the #1 overall player. But unfortunately, because, you know, QBs and stuff like that, that might not be the case. But yeah, because we're roughly around the midway point of the college football season, I feel fairly comfortable being able to drop this list for you guys here today. So without further ado, let's talk about some of the big daddies. And let's look at the interior defensive line. We'll go from 5 all the way to 1. So at number 5, actually honorable mentions. We have honorable mentions. We might as well do that. I like Kiris Tonga from BYU. Very impressive during the USC game. Almost dominate that game. Laurel Murchison from NC State. Justin Matabuke. He's also really good, really productive. And Raekwon Davis. Raekwon Davis from Alabama. I thought for sure he's going to be my, number 2, maybe even number 1. He has fell off. He has hurt his draft stock more than any player, in my opinion, in this year's draft class. He should have went out last year. Would have been a lock to go top 15, top 20. He has just looked a shadow of himself. He has not looked good at all. He's been outshined by like LeBron Ray on that defensive line. I'm actually shocked. I still think he could turn around the season, finish strong, because from an athletic standpoint, this guy's a free, like 6'7". He looks like almost like Sean Oakman. He's the closest thing to a Sean Oakman of like a freaky, gigantic monster that we've seen. And last year, like really his last 2 years of tape before 2019 was outstanding. I don't really know what's going on, but he has not been impressive. So I still have to put him on my honorable mentions because he could finish and turn the season around and definitely shoot back up into my top 5. So starting at number 5, we have Neville Gallimore, 6'3", 320 pounds, even though he's more so like 315 out of Oklahoma. He might be Dontari Poe tier of an interior defensive line athlete. Like Dontari Poe, built like a nose tackle, ran a sub-4, put up ridiculous numbers on the bench press. There is a chance that Gallimore could reach those numbers. He is an insane athlete. It's Oklahoma. Do Oklahoma players really play defense? Not really. The tape is going to be inconsistent because the defense is inconsistent. It's called inconsistently, but Neville Gallimore has had enough splash plays for me to put him in my top 5. He is a terrific run stuffer, not necessarily pigeonholed as a run stuffer, because usually when you get pigeonholed as a defensive tackle run stuffer, you can just scrape off a round or 2 from your draft grade. Like, even though you're really, top 50, top 75 in true talent, if you can't offer much in terms of affecting the pass, you're just devalued in today's NFL. And I think because he's such a good athlete, that's kind of going to spin into the negative, is that he is limited as a pass rusher right now. But when you bring and possess the athletic traits that I truly believe he will show at the combine and his pro day, you can develop it. If you have a D-line coach that's worth his weight in salt, you're going to be able to refine that and at least be a competent to above average pass rusher while still being an elite run defender. And that's really where the value is going to come for Neville Gallimore. But, sometimes maybe just because he's going to get pigeonholed as a run stuffer, that athletic traits that he's going to pose is going to be not enough to overcome the fact that he is just much more refined as a run stuffer right now. So like I said, man, that the number 5, number 4, somewhere in that territory, still lots of flexibility right now between my D-line prospects. Maybe it's a little bit of Canada bias because he's one of the best Canadian prospects we've ever had, along with like Chuba Hubbard, who's killing it right now for Oklahoma State, or Chase Claypool's killing it for Notre Dame. But Gallimore, right now, he's coming at number 5. Coming at number 4, I have Nick Coe, 6'5", 290 pounds out of Auburn. Brings really good versatility. He can play everywhere. I think he can play defensive end. He can play defensive tackle. He can play a little 3-4 outside linebacker. That's what Auburn's using him a little bit right now this year. He's very powerful. This guy is jacked to the gills. I don't think, for a guy that's a little bit undersized, I think he can set an edge. He can set one hell of an edge. And, maybe more so a 3-4 defensive end, but I think you could get him as an interior pass rusher in a 4-3. I wouldn't be afraid to draft him as such, but as noted by the draft number, because I didn't really pick up this on his tape, but usually I trust these guys whose job it is to just analyze tape. They do say there is a clear lack of pass rush moves that shows up on his film. Like I said, I'm not a huge, at least this early on, I don't really look at cut-ups and stuff like that. I just watch games. I've watched Auburn play 2 or 3 times. He's looked very good. While the end production might not always be there, he's getting in the backfield. He's making a lot of plays. And while he's being overshadowed by, obviously, maybe the best interior defensive lineman in the country, I think he has a lot of upside given his frame and build to really become a nice interior pass rusher. But he is definitely having a down year in 2019. His 2018 stats were really good, man. I think like 13 half tackles for loss, almost 10 sacks. So, I think, he could return, but I do believe in today's NFL where every team kind of wants, at least for sub packages, even if you're just rotational, bringing in that interior defensive tackle that is his job is to collapse the pocket and get after that quarterback. I think there's going to be a lot of added value to Nick Coe. Now, the top three really solidified for me, which, with Raekwon Davis falling out of it, I think these top three might not change. Number 3, we have Marvin Wilson, 6'5", 325 pounds, out of Florida State. Well-rounded interior defensive lineman. He's an improved pass rusher in 2019. Kind of was almost pigeonholed as a run stuffer, like how I view Neville Gallimore. But Jesus Christ, he's 7.5 sacks, or 7.5 TFLs, 5 sacks already through 8 games for a inconsistent Florida State team on both sides of the ball. That has been very impressive for a guy whose body work before this was more so a space eater type D tackle. The fact that he's, elevated his game and showing off a little bit more in terms of affecting the pass has definitely improved his draft stock. He's a good athlete too for being around that 320 range, almost a fringe nose tackle build. I think he will test fairly well at the combine. Not one of those guys that gets like a meme, ran a 640-yard dash, something like that. He's very powerful. But I think the reason why he's at 3 and not a little bit higher, I think he's a limited ceiling. I think he's fairly close to what he's going to be as a top-end prospect. I think he's going to be like a high-end D-tackle 2, fringe D-tackle 1, which is not bad. Those guys there can go and command a late first-round pick, second-round pick, somewhere in that territory, which is where I think he should fall. But a very nice prospect here in Marvin Wilson. Going to D-tackle number 2, I have Javon Kinlaw. 6'6", 300 pounds from South Carolina as an interior pass rusher. Really, really good. I think he's the best that you can get for those NASCAR packages. I mean, I look for Philadelphia. It's easy for me to relate to the Eagles, like a Malik Jackson, a guy that's just very, very long, disruptive from the inside. I think that's what you get in Kinlaw. A-tier length, man. He's going to be one of those guys when they, the early days of the combine, when they start measuring your arm length, your wingspan. I think he's going to have something ridiculous, like 82, 83, somewhere in that territory. And he's upside, and I think once you fill out that frame a little bit, because he's 6'6", maybe even 6'7", closer to 6'7" than he is to 6'6". You fill out that frame, you get him 315, 10, 15 pounds of muscle. He has that elite reach ability, can cover so much space and inside with that wingspan. I truly think he is a prospect to just salivate over, and his stats this year has been really, really productive. And I think only the downside is his run defense. I mean, he's an interior pass rusher. That is his job right now, and I think because of there's so much room for him to grow in terms of literally grow, get bigger. I think there is some, you can refine that pass rush ability and also bring up the run defense, which is his glaring weakness right now. And I think you have a really good prospect in your hands. I think he should go in the first round. And then number 1 at interior defensive line, very easy for me right now, is Derrick Brown, 6'5", 320 out of Auburn. Scary athlete for his size. We talked about Neville Gallimore, potentially have Don Terry Poe. Athletic traits, Derrick Brown's probably right there with him. I think it brings you some scheme flexibility. I think you can play nose tackle. I think you can play 3-4 end. You can definitely play 4-3 D tackle, so that's huge for him. He block sheds as good as any defensive tackle I've seen. He is a disruptor. I mean, he killed. I'm still shocked that Florida was able to beat Auburn because he took over that game on the defense. He had a bunch of fumble, had like a pick, which was actually not a good look because he tripped over his own feet, which is, that's within itself. But, I mean, he took over the game against my Florida Gators. He looked really, really dominant against Oregon. Those are the 2 Auburn games that I really have keyed in on and watched thoroughly throughout the season. I mean, he was the best player in the field in both those games. And those, against Oregon, you're going up against pretty much everyone on that offensive line is going to go day 2 or earlier on Oregon. You got maybe the best quarterback, second best, top 3 quarterback in college football in Justin Herbert. And, I mean, they get really good running backs, C.J. Verdell, Troy Dye, and Derrick Brown was dominating that game, taking over that game. His run defense can be hit or miss because he's so aggressive. He can get in the backfield, kind of overreach and overstep his grounds there. But that's definitely something that can be honed in, refined just a little bit. So I think for me, Derrick Brown, top 15 talent in this year's draft class. Maybe even top 10 if he tests as well as he potentially could at the combine. But somewhere in that 10 to 15 range is where I think he should fall. So then finishing up here with the edge, we got a couple honorable mentions. I got John Grenard from Florida, transfer from what is he from? Maryland, I think. He's been really, really dominant, kind of came out of nowhere. Definitely improved his draft stock. Alton Robinson from Syracuse is very good. Josh Uche from Michigan, I like his tape. Darrell Taylor from Tennessee, been like really pretty much the lone bright spot for the Volunteers this season. So those are all guys that just missed the cut. Starting at number 5, we have Kayla Voss, 6'4", 250 out of LSU. He is a great bender, terrific athlete, not afraid to jump in coverage, very much more a 3-4 outside linebacker, but I think you probably could stick him on the line, hand in the dirt, if you get him to bulk up just a little bit. He's 250, he's listed at 250, he's probably closer to like, 235, 240, somewhere in that range. I am getting a lot of Josh Allen vibes from him, though. I think that while his production is kind of limited, which kind of goes in the negatives because he's, he had torn ACL last year, just not a lot of tape on him. And what he's from this year, man, he comes in, he's, I think you look at that very good LSU defense, he's probably, you got Stingley, Grant Delpit, and Chasson's right there for like who is truly the best player on this defensive side of the ball. But the negative, like I said, there's limited tape. Easy to declare. He's a redshirt sophomore after getting like the medical year last season. I personally think he should be, fringe first round pick right now. I think honestly, if he returns to school, gets a little bit heavier, gets a little bit more muscly, he could solidify himself as a top 10, top 15 pick next year in 2021. But you go if you get a first round grade, you're probably going to jump to the NFL, which by all means, he has that upside right now. But I think he might be a little bit more beneficial if he returns to school and does that. But either way, man, he needs to add weight and get stronger, which he could do by returning to school. Scouts have noted limited pass rush moves. Just ran, even I can see, and I kind of confirmed it. Confirmation bias. He wins a lot with his athletic ability. You're not seeing a lot of technical paralysis at the line of scrimmage when he goes up against tackles. Sometimes he gets matched up with tight ends. Again, that's all stuff that can be honed in at the next level. But I personally do think he should return. That's why I put him at 5 right now, because there's a lot of questions about that. There's uncertainty. He's a redshirt sophomore. By all means, return back to school, kid. Going to edge number 4, I have Curtis Weaver, 6'3", 260 out of Boise State. A very powerful edge rusher, consistent production. He's been started as a true freshman for Boise State. That's kind of what put him on my radar. Was really good last year, and it's even better this year. He's probably going to finish 17, 16, 17, 18 sacks. Real big reason for the success of Boise State carrying the load when they've had some quarterback issues, true freshman quarterbacks. You can rely on their defense. And Weaver has been very dominant. He can set an edge. He's just, I get a lot of the positives from him. Remind me a lot of Derrick Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, if I compare a player, I watch more Eagles than anything. If I see a guy that looks exactly like an Eagle, I'm going to call it as I see it. Now, he doesn't have the bend. Derrick Brown has terrific bend. But the positives of what you can see with Weaver reminds me a lot of what Derrick Barnett did great at Tennessee. But the negatives for Curtis Weaver, he's a stiff rusher, an above-average athlete. It is what it is. You're not magically, unless you start taking Lane Johnson supplements, going to become a better athlete. But I definitely think he's a guy that's in that fringe first-round, second-round pick. You're going to be able to get him. He's probably going to be a career guy. They'll get you, never going to be a defensive player of the year type guy. But a very capable edge rusher that you count on to give you a 6 on the low end, maybe 10 or 11 on the high-end type sacks every single season, and there is definitely a value for that in today's NFL. Going to edge number 3, we have AJ Epenza, 6'6", 280 from Iowa, brings prototype size. He's gigantic, a power rusher. You can set an edge, and he's great as a run defender. Like, the positives look similar to Curtis Weaver. We just talked about the negatives are almost identical as well. He is stiff. He's not an elite athlete. His bend is not great. That's not his style, but if you want to be considered a top 10 prospect, you got to kind of bring it all to the table. And I think he's slightly overrated right now amongst the draft committee. I'm not really wowed by him. You could see the talent, you could see the upside, you could see what he already brings. But he's a first round talent, but a lot of people are talking about him. I think the Draft Network, Walter Football, some CBS, they have him like top 10 in a lot of the rankings. I think he's really solid, but for me, I'm more so thinking he's in that 10 to 20 range, 10 to 25, somewhere in that range. And he's, like I said, man, it is what it is. Stiff edge rushers usually don't get unstiff, and you want those guys that have that bend that can just destroy an edge, destroy a tackle, and get after the quarterback. Going to edge number 2, Yetur Gross-Matos, 6'5", 245 out of Penn State. Explosive edge rusher, absolutely lives in the backfield. Very easy to root for if you heard his background, his story. Brutal, absolutely brutal. Like some of the things that have happened in his life. They did a thing on it a couple weeks ago on ESPN. So very easy to root for. I think he has an incredibly high ceiling. He's the type of guy that's going to go in the first round, and he's only going to get better than versus like someone that we just talked about, like Marvin Wilson from the interior defensive line, Florida State, more so at that ceiling right now or close to it. I think just Gross-Matos is just starting that. I don't think he needs to fill it a little bit. He's light in the ass, but that is all things that come with an NFL strength and conditioning program. For me, like I said, maybe it's a little bit surprising to have him ahead of Epenza, who's most people that are talking about the draft have him as a clear-cut number 2. I just think Matos a little bit more explosive, a little higher upside. Give me that every day of the week. I'll bank on this kid to really take it to the next level at the NFL. And the number one edge rusher, clearly, he's the best player in college. Chase Young, 6'5", 265 from Ohio State. Prototype. He's not even just a prototype edge. He's a prototype number one overall pick. He has everything that you want. He's an elite edge. He's unblockable. He takes games over from athletics to power moves to finesse moves to a relentless motor. He has all of that in spades. I could not really find one negative about Chase Young. He's number one. He's at least number one on the big board. Probably, you know, with the Miami and Cincinnati, those teams picking at the top. I mean, I hope to God that like Washington at 3 doesn't get to get a Chase Young. That would be very annoying, even though I do think Philly has a tremendous offensive line. We can deal with it, but he's the number one player in college football. He's the number one player. I think he's slightly better than Nick Bosa. Like if I had Nick Bosa, we're grading NCAA football ratings. Nick Bosa, if you know, maybe that's not so fair because Nick Bosa and Chase Young both would be 99s. But if we're trying to really compare them, Nick Bosa would be like a 95 overall, and I think Chase Young would be like a 97. Like if you're that, like I think he's just a little bit better of a prospect than Nick Bosa, and you're seeing Nick Bosa absolutely dominate the NFL so far this season. So I think whatever team is lucky enough to not need a quarterback in the first team that can select. I mean, hey, Miami, those 2 first rounders, you might take Chase Young and then try to grab a quarterback a little bit later on. Wouldn't hate that, especially for Miami, a team that definitely needs to get better on the defensive line and getting after the quarterback. But he's prospect number one for me. So there you go, guys. Those are my D-line rankings from interior to edge. If you agree or disagree with any prospects I kind of broke down here today, let me know in the comment section below. If I slept on someone that I didn't talk about, let me know. As always, your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. Plenty of draft content coming throughout the upcoming months. And smash the like button if you enjoyed. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.